Welcome back to Date and Time Formulas. Let's continue with the last two real-life examples. Okay, let's get back into this date and time example. The HR timesheet that's here, it's already filled out by all the employees by each day. So this is January 11th, then it switches over to the 12th, and then it goes all the way through January 22nd. So what we need to do now is add in these 4 columns. We want to see exactly how much time did this add up to. And to do that, you normally would just say the time out less the time in would give you the difference. And so we can see here that it says 10:19 a.m. And we just learned that hours formula. So we can type in hour and select that serial number. So behind that 1019, it's actually just a serial number. And we can say pull back exactly what it is. And it's 10 hours. So you can even see it's displaying it in a time format. So 10 hours, how many minutes? Minutes. And we're going to grab that, should be 19, as you can see here. And then we're going to grab seconds as well. So second, and select it, enter, 12 seconds. Now, sometimes it's a little bit easier if you go ahead and change this into the fraction of a day. So to see exactly how much time in a day did the person work, you can change the format using Control-Shift and tilde. And it tells you that the employee worked 0.43% of the day. Now, we can break this down and just verify that this 10 hours makes sense, and it obviously does, but we can say, all right, this is what portion of a day in a 24-hour day, so we're going to say this times 24 hours in a day, and you get 10.32. And you kind of look at this and you're like, well, why? I see 10, so 10 hours, that makes sense, but 32, that's not 32 minutes. But again, you got to continue to remember that it's 32% of an hour. So about a third of an hour is 20 minutes. Which would make sense here. So I'm going to take equals 0.32 times 60. And now you get the 19 minutes. And again, you get 0.2 or 20% of 60 seconds is 12 minutes. So 12 times 5 is 60. So I can say equals 0.2 times 60, 12 minutes. Let's go ahead and carry this formula down just by double clicking. And you can see now this is completely populated. We can go ahead and analyze this by using a pivot table. So I'm going to come over here, Control-Shift over, and then hit the down arrow just to select it all. Then I'm going to pop into my Insert tab on the ribbon and grab Pivot Table. And it's already selecting the range that I have selected. And let's put it on a new worksheet here. Just hit OK. And we can go ahead and analyze this. So let's pop over here, get this closer. Now to summarize this data, we probably want to summarize it by person. So I'm going to take the names and put it in the rows. And you can see it's the full set of names of the employees here. And then I'm going to take the fraction of the time that we calculated and drop it in here. So in the 2-week period, Kathy worked 3.73 days, meaning if it was a full 24-hour day, she worked 3 of those and then 0.73% of the next one. So almost 4 full days. So let's calculate this into hours, and we can do this with a formula over here. We can type equals and use the formula round down and grab this cell here. But I don't like it when it goes ahead and gives me this get pivot data. So sometimes I'll erase it and actually just reference the cell. So I'm going to come out of here and I'm just going to type B4. So it'll select just that cell, and then when I copy the formula down, it'll easily copy to rows 5, 6, and 7, and so forth. So I'm going to say round this down and don't give me any digits. So I'm going to say 0 and hit enter, and we get 3. And so what we want to do with 3 is we want to multiply that by 24 because that's 3 full days that she's worked in the 2-week period. So I'm going to take this again and then actually just multiply this by 24 hours. So she's worked 72 hours, and then we need to go ahead and use our hours formula to figure out how many extra hours has she worked here. So I'm going to take the serial number here. Again, it gives you that goofy get pivot data formula. I hate that, so I'm going to get out of there and just write B4 and close it up. And it gives me 17 extra hours, so I'm going to take this plus this. And like all formulas, I come in here and I say I'm referencing C4, so I'm going to replace that with the formula that I'm referencing and paste it in here. And then I'm going to take this one and grab this and put it in here as well. And I'm going to remove this now, cut this, Control X, and then Control V to paste it. And I'm at 89 hours, double click to drop it down, and we get a total of 1,046 hours, but here are the totals by person. Now, because we have this formula written outside of the pivot table, yet it's referencing just a single value in the pivot table, this is the perfect example of when you would use a calculated field in a pivot table, which is more of an advanced pivot table function. But since we already have it written outside here, let's go ahead and do it quickly. So I'm going to select this formula and copy it, Control C, because we're going to use it later. And right now, let's cut this and move it over a couple columns. And to get into the pivot table calculation field, we have to select the pivot table, which will allow the pivot table tools options to appear on the ribbon here. Click on Analyze, and then towards the right, you'll see Fields, Items, and Sets. And then we have Calculated Field option here. In this calculated field, we are trying to create what we manually created outside of the pivot table, which was the total hours. So I'm going to label this as total hours. And in the formula, what we want to do is I'm going to paste in that formula, and you can see we have the round down formula, and B4 is what we were referencing over here. But instead of B4 now, I'm actually go ahead and reference a field name in this list. So I deleted that, backspace that out, and I'm going to double click on fraction time. And you can see Excel has populated in here the code for fraction time. I'm going to do the same thing over here for the other B4 within the hour formula. Add that in, and then I'm just going to hit OK. And Excel quickly goes ahead and adds this field into the pivot table, and you can see the answer matches what we manually did. Honestly, how cool is that? So now let's go ahead and move on to our next example. In this next example, we're going to be looking at this purchasing data table that I've extracted out of a database, and specifically we want to analyze the data based on the date. And say we want to do 3 types of analysis. Number 1, what day of the week do we typically purchase on? Number 2, in which weeks of the year do we typically buy more or less? And then lastly, which months do we buy more or less? So we're going to do 3 types of analysis. So let's insert 3 different columns here and put in our day, week, and month types of analysis. And first, starting on this day formula, let's go ahead and just use that weekday formula to figure out which day of the week is this date. And so we can simply reference this serial number and grab the return type based on however you'd like it displayed, with 1 as Sunday through Saturday. I'm going to choose 1 for Monday and then 7 through Sunday. So that's 2, and then close it up. And so this is formatted incorrect because Excel grabbed this format type. So I'm going to switch that up to General, Control-Shift-Tilde, and we can see that this is the second day of the week, which would be a Tuesday. Now we can analyze it with weekday, or we could analyze it by using the text formula. So text would say this value, comma, day, 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 close it up. And that would tell us Tuesday as well. So either a number 2 or Tuesday, whichever you prefer, using the text formula to have text returned for the date, or to use that other formula. Let me undo a couple times and get back to 2 for the weekday. So let's stick with weekday since that's what we're learning. And then let's go on to the week. So to find the week, we can just use that week num formula and again grab that serial number, the return type. So which day of the week does a week begin on? And since let's stay consistent with our day, so we'll choose 2 as well and close it up. Again, it's still formatting as a date, so Control-Shift-Tilde to get that back. And this is week number 2 in January if we're starting our weeks on a Monday. The last one is month. So the month is simple by just typing month formula and referencing the date and hitting enter. It's the first one, and Control-Shift-Tilde gets us back to that general formatting. Let's grab all 3 and populate it all the way down the worksheet. Now to analyze this, I find the simplest way to analyze any set of data is just to put it in a pivot table. So let's go up to the top left header of this data table, Control-Shift to the right, and Control-Shift down to select the entire table. Insert, Pivot Table, and Excel already sees that it's selecting on this range, which we've just selected. And let's put it on a new worksheet and just hit OK. So let's go ahead and move this pivot table field list over. And again, we want to analyze by day, week, and month. So I'm going to grab my day column, put in my rows, and that's Monday through Sunday here. Monday is a 1, Tuesday 2, and so forth. And I want to add up or sum up all of my Mondays through Sundays and see how much do we spend. And that was on my extended price for my purchase. So I'm going to drop that in. And Excel has summed that on every single Monday for the entire year, I spent $584,000. To analyze this a little bit further, I'm going to go into my Analyze tab and insert a pivot chart. So I'm going to insert a line chart real quick and just hit OK. Pop this over here. I'm going to scrunch this down a little bit and maybe push it to the right, and I'll put this up here. So now that we have this in place, you can see that on Mondays it's a little bit lower, Tuesday's always a little higher, lower, higher, 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 and then lower again for Sunday. The next thing we want to do is look at it by week. Let's remove the day and then pull the week into the x-axis. And again, and just as a reminder, this 2, 3, 4, 5, this is the week number of the year. So it should go down to about 52. It looks like it goes to 53. And we'll scroll up and you can see that Excel has graphed it up and down. That's because I've copied and pasted my data for every single month. So it's pretty similar, the trend, that it goes up. I don't have a spiky 1 month for seasonal activity and then like a lower month where I'm not doing business, say, in the winter or fall. Now let's go ahead and get rid of this one and put in our month. So drag the month to this area. And just like I was saying, so you can see I'm pretty flat here, or I am flat here. And then I spike in October for some more purchases and then come back down. Now, this is because, again, I copied and pasted each month and duplicated it. Your business might be different where it's wavier and things like that. The last thing I want to show you is how you can go ahead and use grouping with dates. And so I'm going to put the dates in the row field. So this is the original piece of data that came out of the database. And then we did a formula on the date field to say what day, week, and month is it. Excel has built in where you can right click and go to grouping, or you can find this as well in the Analyze tab in group selection. And this grouping dialog box appears where you can go ahead and say, I want to group it by months. And so Excel, when you do that, it'll populate Jan through December, instead of using the month formula that we created an entire column for. Or you can right click and then group it by, say, quarters instead. Now the thing with this is that it doesn't have by days. So you can't say Mondays and Tuesdays. If I say days, it's literally going to show every day listed out in a date format, just how it was at the beginning. So it doesn't give you the day of the week. So therefore you would have to use the weekday and the week num formulas to be able to analyze your data in that format. If you haven't yet checked out pivot tables, make sure to add this to your list. It's the fastest and easiest way to analyze data quickly.